Hello, I'm Paul Peterson. According to the Child Welfare League of America, nearly 6 million children in the United States are being raised by a grandparent or other relative. Regardless of cultural, religious, or ethnic backgrounds, all kinship caregivers have many of the same concerns, which may include money, emotional and physical health, education, relationships with biological parents, and child care. Today, we will look at kinship care resources in the city of Los Angeles. Stay tuned for Aging in LA. It's a common practice for relatives to step forward to offer their homes, their time, their food, their love to nieces, nephews, grandchildren, and other kin whose parents can no longer care for them. It happens in all cultures and locales, big cities, small towns, and suburban communities. Relatives taking care of their kin face numerous challenges. The relative may be aged, in poor health, socially isolated, or emotionally unprepared to take on responsibility for young children, despite how much you love them. Kinship caregivers generally say that information and assistance about legal matters and general education on how to be prepared to take on a kinship situation are areas in which they need the most help. We'll talk about the issues of kinship care as it pertains to seniors and where to get help. Today on Aging in LA, our guests in the first part of our program are Barbara Barabino from the Department of Children and Family Services, and also joining us is Susie Barkley-Jones, a caregiver and program trainer in the KEEPS program. KEEPS stands for Kinship Education, Preparation, and Support. Thanks to both of you for joining us. Now, Barbara, this is a large and growing area of concern within our community, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Seniors taking care of their grandkids. That's like the last thing you think about. You know, you're here prepared to retire, or maybe you have retired and suddenly here's this little ankle biter in your house. So how do we cope with that? How can seniors best cope with that?
Well, the best way to cope is to really get involved with other caregivers that are also seniors. And that way you don't feel isolated, you don't feel alone, and you can also share some of the same concerns that you may have, they have. And then that way you're connected with a great community that's networking to support your goals as well, to raise your grandchildren. Parenting the second time around is very challenging for them.
Well, exactly. I mean, just physically it can wear you out. But also, I think the lack of preparedness. Sometimes this can happen suddenly, right?
Yes.
Is that what happened in your case, Susie?
Yes, it did, definitely.
Just like out of the blue?
Yes, out of the blue, to the degree that when the first call came through to pick up the oldest son, grandson, I say son now because I've adopted him. I adopted all five. I have 5 boys.
5, oh my.
5 boys. Their ages are 14, 13, twins that are 12, and 11.
I see. So the call came.
The call came, and you go and pick them up. And by having 2 sons, I said, okay, it's no problem. I can deal with this. Then when the second call came, it's like, okay, I can deal with this too. I had 2 sons, I could do it again, no problem. But when the twins came, I said, oh, wait a minute, I got to think about this. I'm not sure what happened, you know.
Yeah.
And these are my son's kids. But by the time the 5th one came along, I was just too through.
Well, and there's so many things to consider. There are money issues. Kids are really expensive today.
Yes.
And then there's the legal status of the children. Now, you say you've adopted. That must have
Yes.
been a lengthy process.
It took us 2 years to actually complete the process because at each phase that either mom was available, dad was not available. Dad was available, mom was not available. And because of that, it took us 2 years to get it done.
Wow. Now, Barbara, when you're an active social worker and this issue suddenly comes up and you recognize that the adult children of another person in the family are incapable of raising their children, or for safety's sake, maybe the children need to be moved. Are you the person who reaches out, or do grandparents come to you and say, we think the child's welfare would be better served in our home?
Well, a lot of times there are some challenges for the caregivers, and we feel if we sit down and really have the proper meetings with the families, because that is the first choice of our department, is to place children with family members if the children have to be taken away from their birth parents. So in a meeting we can actually make these kind of decisions and see maybe it might be housing. It might be something else that we could work out, and it's always a challenge to work it out. And it's our job as social workers and as, Department of Children and Family Services. We have to be who we say we are.
Well, I'm going to make this point because you shared this with me, and I think this is wonderful. Here we are doing this television show. It's 2007, but you two met many years ago, correct?
15 years ago.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So little did you know.
And little did I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But the best, now, there are some satisfactions, though, of being, well, in kinder care, generally, getting that second time around raising kids. Now, you told you kind of went from a little car to a truck?
Yes.
I always share this in training. When my first grandson came along, I was driving a Fiat. Now, from a Fiat, okay, I got a car seat now. Fiat convertible too, okay, okay, I have to change, okay, so I moved to a Ford Escort wagon.
Yeah.
Okay, well, fine, I can put 2 car seats on the back seat, no problem. When the twins came along, okay, no, I can't put no more kids in this car. Okay, I got to go to a van, so I went to a van.
Yeah.
Well, about a year or 2 ago, they started all playing sports.
Right. Well, now,
So I had a
hockey sticks,
Suburban.
that's right.
Okay. And the gas was killing me because of the gas crisis
course.
and everything, so I had to downsize. So I have a truck now, just a little smaller, but still
But in Los Angeles, particularly with this car culture, that says it all.
Yes, yes,
the
yes.
changing needs of our families.
Exactly.
It's not quite the motorhome you thought about, is it?
No, it's not quite the vacation I thought about.
Well,
at summertime, or I could schedule my vacations accordingly.
but Barbara, it must be very heartening to watch people, clearly a person of faith and who has some interior strength to be able to take on this responsibility. Thank goodness they're doing this.
Well, the difference between a foster parent and a relative caregiver is that they really didn't have a choice, with their family members when they get the call in the night or in the day to ask to take on their family members. Of course, you're going to say yes.
That's right.
And then you think about the other obstacles later, because there are a lot of obstacles. There's the system.
Yes.
There's housing issues, child care issues.
Education.
Education.
Oh, my
and a lot
goodness.
of caregivers had to stop working to take care of the kids.
Certainly.
They had to weigh the scale. Was it more financially advantageous to stay home or to go to work?
Is it, you had, obviously, with the adoption process, you were facing some legal issues. That can be very ticklish because there might be safety issues involved, or the question of who has the authority.
That primarily was the concern after a period of time, because in the process of having the kids, caregivers, relatives do not have any rights.
Yes.
All we do is take care of them, nurture them, care for them, feed them, clothe them. But when it comes down to school rights, if we don't pursue getting legal guardianship, we have no rights in their say of education or even in medical
Or
conditions.
in medical issues, right?
Yeah,
which,
right.
Which do,
Sure.
boy, if you got kids playing sports, that can come up in a heck of a hurry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was, I followed the steps in getting the process done, from legal guardianship to looking into adoption. And adoption was the most advantageous to make us permanent.
Yeah.
Because the whole key was nothing was permanent. Even though they were my biological grandsons, nothing was permanent. And to have them after about 12 years, you say, forget this, they're not going home.
Yeah, that's a tough admission to make, too.
Oh,
so
yes.
that you kind of leapfrog that generation, which, for one reason or another, just didn't turn out the way you wanted
Exactly.
it to.
Exactly.
Well, now tell me about training other grandparents to to cope with this?
My passion.
Oh, well, of
It's
course.
my passion.
Sure.
And I've enjoyed it. I've been a trainer now going on 7 years, actually it's 7 years as a KEEPS trainer. And just in sharing the experiences as well as the materials really get us in touch with the whole aspect of kinship.
Right.
From teaching us to understand what we're feeling, then from going from the first 3 modules of the program to understanding us to the next 3 modules to help us understand what's going on with the child.
Right.
And then the last 3 modules deals with the parent and what they're dealing with, what their hopes and dreams. Believe it or not, at all 3 of the phases, we all have hopes and dreams.
Well, sure.
And, my hopes was the kids were going home. The kids' hopes is that they're going home. The parents' dreams and hopes are that they're coming home. But it doesn't always happen.
No, it doesn't. I was just hearing this morning on the news, we have 2 million people incarcerated, and that puts a tremendous burden on grandparents. Now, KEEPS Foundation, education, preparedness, and support. How is that extended to people? Because who can be prepared for this? I mean, you don't really plan for it unless you kind of get this inkling, oops, I got a child here, a son or a daughter who is not taking care. But how do you educate the community that these services are available to them?
Well, we have a 800 number that's out there, and we try to make a lot of presentations and be very visible in the community. And also, we're associated with the foundation, the Community College Foundation, because a lot of our children are special needs, and they have to take special classes.
Well, if a failed parental relationship can result in a child with special needs. We know that.
Right.
And sometimes these can be dramatic physical needs as well.
Yes.
So it's just... it makes you ache sometimes to think something we took so for granted almost has changed dramatically. And these numbers that the Child Welfare League supplied to us, 6 million children. That's a big city all by itself. Well, now, when is the goal still reunification, or is it the welfare of the child, the ongoing welfare of the child?
Well,
How
our
does
first
that
initiative with the department is safety. Next, it is permanency. Our children deserve to have a permanent plan.
Yes.
And our department is very much involved with that. I mean, we try to sit down and make a plan, and we're a huge system. You're talking about courts, social workers, monthly visits, judicial review hearings every 6 months. And it's overwhelming for caregivers. So through our Kinship Resource Centers, we try to help the caregiver feel that there is some hope, there's information, there's education.
Well, let's give them some of that information. We have an 888 number,
Yes, we do.
toll free for people to call, and we should supply that to people.
Sure.
So we have it's up on the screen here, 888-694-7263. And if you haven't written that down, we can do, what is it now, 888?
My grand.
My grand. How cool.
My grand.
Well, blessings to you for what you've done. It's, there's always a special place reserved for folks like you. And to see, I have seen, I think I shared with you, in my own family, a welcome outcome from an intimidated child to a child who's proud of his attendance record at school. Now, those are kind of old values, but who better to teach them than our seniors? And what sense of satisfaction to be able to direct a program that provides really much. You're so scared when something like this happens. Gosh, what next? And yet fate is what it is. Your life can change in a heartbeat.
Yes.
Gosh, it's time for us to take a short break. We'll be back in just a moment to carry on our discussion of kinship care. Thanks to our guests in the first half of the program, Barbara Barabino from the Department of Children and Family Services, and Susie Barkley-Jones, a caregiver and program trainer from the program. When we return, we'll be joined by a guest from the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. This is important. We'll be right back after these important messages.
Hey, buddy! You with the stupid hat. Come here. Closer. No parking! Do you know what happens when you park illegally on these narrow hillside streets? You block the street so emergency vehicles can't pass. Each year, homes are destroyed and lives are lost because of drivers like you who park illegally. And you know what else? You can get a citation. And you can be towed.
Help us get to the emergency. The life we save just might be yours.
How'd you know?
The ball called.
Hey, look out for the pothole.
Need a recycling center? Call 311, the toll-free number for non-emergency services. 311, your one call to City Hall. Graffiti removal? Call 311, the toll-free number for non-emergency services. 311, your one call to City Hall.
Welcome back to Aging in LA. Our topic today, kinship care, particularly kinship care seniors who are caring for their grandchildren. Our guest in the second half of the program, Marjorie Shelby from the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. Marjorie, let's talk about the intersection between kinship care and the legal system. When people come to you, or when you hear about a case, generally there's some sense of urgency there, isn't there?
Yes, because they can often get their grandchildren, they get a call in the middle of the night, or maybe it's a newborn. This baby is born with drugs, can you come to the hospital and get the child? They have no resources, they don't have the even the crib, the bassinet, and they don't have the financial resources, maybe not room in the house, so they're all of a sudden they're in crisis.
Right, and then of course they may be called upon to start making a whole string of decisions that they may be uncertain of. And in fact, you were explaining to me that their status in the legal system until they actually get a ruling can be very challenging.
Well, it is, even if the children are placed with them by the court, they have no standing in court. The parents have standing, the children have standing, the caregiver does not. They're not allowed to say anything unless the judge asks them or allows them to. So they don't, unless they're invited, they don't even get to say how the children are doing, whether they're doing well or what problems they're having. So they're kind of in a limbo for themselves.
Right, and it's not necessarily grandparents, the biological grandparents, who may be called upon to open up their home to a child, even unto a newborn. I didn't even think about that. That's a call in the middle of the night that could be quite frightening.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and they may not even have known that their child was pregnant, and it may be that this is their son is the father of the child and didn't tell them. There's just all kinds of complications with it.
Right. And I'm sure for many, although they have, of course, raised one generation, it is a daunting task to raise, let's say, a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old is suddenly in your house. Boy, are you able in legal aid to refer your clients to the support services?
We refer them to the Kinship support services. There are other support groups, individual groups, grandparents as parents, and others that are independent of children's services who can, these are mostly women who've been through the system, and they help others, and they get to talk to each other, and this one solved the problem. There's always somebody who's been through the problem.
Right, and that's so important. Legally, what are the judges or the decision makers looking for? Are there sort of guidelines on the steps you need to take to change the guardianship, for example, and who gets to make medical decisions?
Yeah, they should immediately, the caregiver, get approval for health care because they need that, and education. But they need some document that says that, so they can, if it's a school-age child, they need to get them in
Well,
school.
what about financial support?
That is very difficult.
Right, really?
For a relative caregiver. The rule is now is that unless the parents were eligible for welfare, the child cannot get federal foster care. And that's the only foster care available to caregivers, relatives.
We have spent most of this program discussing seniors looking after their grandchildren. But Marjorie has brought a story that features a teenager looking after his father, in which the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles was involved. Let's take a look.
19-year-old Victor Garcia came to the United States when he was just a little boy. His dream, to attend college on a scholarship and become a teacher, was nearly shattered when his father was faced with a life-threatening illness.
If it hadn't been for legal aid, I probably wouldn't be here at this university. I couldn't be enjoying any rights at all. My dad's health would have been really serious.
Victor's father, Albino, had been a laborer in a nursery for very low wages and no benefits or sick leave. Diabetes caused his kidneys to fail. On top of that, he injured his foot at work and his leg had to be amputated. He could no longer provide for his family.
I become very worried and afraid because of the problems that he has.
He was the man of the house. We just had to depend on my mom now.
Then Albino was tragically diagnosed with Alzheimer's. His wife Alicia had to quit her job to take care of the family. Now they were totally dependent on Albino's disability check of only $625 per month.
This was the only income that they had, and that's the income that they were surviving on. So losing that would have meant death sentence for them.
Another devastating blow came with the passage of the Welfare Reform Act in 1996. Even though he was a legal permanent resident, Albino needed to pass a written citizenship test or his benefits would be taken away. But Albino had never been to school. He couldn't read or write.
He was on medication because of the dialysis, which impaired his memory, impaired his cognitive functions.
Albino needed a medical waiver from his doctor, but getting one was a daunting challenge. That's when legal aid stepped in to help.
There was a lot of confusion between the doctors and immigration. On the other hand, the doctors didn't know exactly how to write the waivers so that it would be acceptable to immigration.
LAFLA fought his case for 3 years, and finally Albino was granted his citizenship. His hard-earned disability benefits and his family's well-being were no longer threatened. A proud 12-year-old Victor witnessed his father's citizenship ceremony.
That gave me the gusto and the enthusiasm just to think that I wanted to be a citizen. I was in thirst for that.
LAFLA went on to help Victor become a citizen too. Just last June, he was named valedictorian of his graduating class at Bishop Mora Salesian High School. He is now a freshman at UC Irvine, pursuing his dream.
Everybody at Legal Aid was so proud of him because it's such a success story for somebody who, the first years of his life didn't even speak any English.
It made a great impact on my life. First of all, because it gave me the opportunity to come to college. And my dad was really lucky to have met this wonderful woman named Dahlia.
For 75 years, the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles has stood for access to justice for low-income people in our communities. What that really means, though, is giving kids an opportunity for a good education, giving families a place to live, giving senior citizens and disabled people a safety net, being a refuge and source of protection for victims of domestic violence. The result of 75 years of access to justice is that we save lives and we change lives.
That's quite a story, Marjorie. It really is. Talk about the proper use of resources, education. This will be returned 100-fold to our society, this young man's potential, if you will. But there's a dark side to much of this because so many grandparents or people who are faced suddenly with kinship care issues don't have resources. They may not have a quality job. They may not have enough housing. How best can we help? Is it possible to reach into the community to say, now look, don't be stunned into silence here. No. Make a call. Who should people call?
They should call Legal Aid, and they can call our government benefits unit.
Right. And you have a website now.
Yes,
as
we
well.
have a website.
Mhm.
They can go to that, which will show them all of our programs,
Mhm.
and then they can call us, and our job is to help them or to find the resources. The answer is never to be, we can't help.
Right.
We can find help, and we want them to call. We worry about the people who don't call us.
Well, and I think most people are like, there is this inbuilt reluctance in humans to say, oh, to seek help when they truly need it.
Yes.
And I think you gotta, when it's on behalf of your children or your grandchildren, you've got to reach out. You can't let personal embarrassment stand in your way.
Right. They need to call. They need to find somebody else to give them the resources. All they need to do is make a phone call, and they should be received with open arms, and we'll do whatever we can to help.
Well, of course you know this. This cycle of violence and failure to attain economic status or educational achievements, this can be generational. And if you don't break it somewhere, it can go on and on.
Yes. Yeah, it's a very sad thing. If the children have been abused, then they're likely to become the next abusers, and that's where we need to break into it and change the cycle of violence to show them what a loving home is about.
Right.
There can be demands, but they're not demands of violence. It's expectations they can reach.
Well, and I was thinking that, often there's been some psychic damage. There is some form of impairment. You're not kind of like other kids, but I remember in the 50s, divorce used to do that to children, and now it's these broken families. Well, it looks like our time is up for today's edition of Aging in L.A. Thanks so much to our guests. In the second part of the program, Marjorie Shelby from the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. And in the first part of the program, Barbara Barabino, Department of Children and Family Services, and Susie Barkley Jones, a caregiver from the KEEPS program. Remember, there are many agencies in the Los Angeles area that can furnish the resources that you may need if you or someone you know is involved in a kinship situation. Be sure to take advantage of them. The Los Angeles Department of Aging produces this program with CityView, Channel 35, so that seniors living in Los Angeles and surrounding communities are well informed on the many issues that face them in everyday life. And also to let you know of the many services that the Department of Aging offers our senior citizens. We'd like to hear from you with comments on the program, what you like, what you think can be improved, and your ideas for future programs. So please give us a call. The number's right there on your screen, area code 213-252-4088. That's 213-252-4088. Call us with your comments and ideas. We look forward to hearing from you. I'm Paul Peterson for the Los Angeles Department of Aging, the people here at CityView Channel 35, and all of our guests on Aging in LA. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.